All right. What's up, everybody? My people in Manhattan, the Boogie Down Bronx, Queens, for all the way out to Staten Island, my home borough, Brooklyn. Back out with another video, and this is going to be on the 2022 NFL Hall of Fame class. Let me say congratulations to the guys who made it. Well deserved, all-time great players. For guys who didn't make it this year, don't worry, you always have next year. But the reason I'm making a video on this class is because this is probably the weakest Hall of Fame class probably in a long time. When I say weak, I mean, listen, nothing personal against these guys, but there's several guys who got in this year that probably didn't deserve it, and there's several guys who did get in this year that most definitely deserved it. I mean, let's just start with number one, Leroy Butler. Leroy Butler definitely deserved it. Leroy Butler definitely deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. He's arguably the best safety of the 1990s. He played on those. He was, of course, a member of that legendary Packers team in 1996. You see his accolades: Super Bowl champion, a four-time first-team All-Pro, 4 Pro Bowls, a member of the 90s All-Decade team, 30 interceptions, 20.5 sacks. I believe he was the first player in NFL history to get 30 plus interceptions and 20 or more sacks. I mean, Leroy Butler, if you watch his highlights, he was incredible. Just an all-around playmaker. If he needed to tackle somebody, get him on the ground, he could get him on the ground. If he needed to rush the quarterback, get him on the ground, could do it. If he needed to intercept the pass, he could do it. In the 90s, had some great safeties. He had, Darren Woodson, who should be in the Hall of Fame. You had, what's my man's name? Steve Atwater, who got in, of course, a couple years ago. You had John Lynch, who got into the Hall of Fame last year. All great players. And Leroy Butler is arguably the best of them all. Arguably. Leroy Butler definitely, deserved to be in the Hall of Fame this year. Congratulations to him. It's a shame he had to wait so long, but hey, at least he's still alive to stand on that stage, receive his gold jacket, and give his speech. Congratulations to Leroy Butler. Next up, Tony Buselly. I believe Tony Buselly deserved it. He was the first ever pick in the history of the Jaguars franchise, 1995. You see him here dominating the NFL's all-time leader in sacks, Bruce Smith, in a playoff game. The second year of existence for the Jaguars, they go to the playoffs, face Buffalo, and Tony Buselly owned Bruce Smith, who was Defensive Player of the Year in 96, might I add. Tony Buselly, I know he had a short career, but for guys who had short careers, what did you do in that short time? When you were healthy, when you played, what did you do? What did you accomplish? People like Gale Sayers and Tyrell Davis, you already know what they accomplished. Tony Buselly, 3-time first-team All-Pro, 5 Pro Bowls, a member of the 90s All-Decade team. So what that tells me, being a 5-time Pro Bowler and a 3-time first-team All-Pro, he was considered the best player in his position. Now, mind you, let me show you who he played in this era with. Jonathan Ogden and Walter Jones. Both those guys are not only in the Hall of Fame, but they're on the NFL's 100th anniversary team. You see, here's Ogden in the Hall of Fame, Walter Jones. And Tony Buselly, for a short spell, was considered better than them. Here he is getting helped off the field after getting hurt. So for me, if you were considered the best, if you were dominant when you were healthy in your short career for 3, 4, 5 years, you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Okay, Tyrell Davis had 3, 4 great years. The rest of the years he got hurt, but those 3, 4 years put him in the Hall of Fame. Gale Sayers, the same thing. He had 4 great years and 7. That's what got him in the Hall of Fame. Earl Campbell had 4 great years and 8, but those 4 great years got him in the Hall of Fame. Tony Buselly had 3, 4, 5 great years. And those 3, 4, 5 great years put him in the Hall of Fame, so he deserves it completely. Cliff Branch, may he rest in peace. One of the best receivers of the 1970s, in a running era. He had Lynn Swann, John Stallworth on the same team. You had Drew Pearson. You had Harold Carmichael. Paul Warfield played for a spell in the 70s. Of course, you had Cliff Branch's own teammate, Fred Biletnikoff, who was Super Bowl MVP of Super Bowl 11. Cliff Branch, he embodied the Raiders' motto, speed kills. That's one of their many mottos. Everybody who says things about Al Davis say Al Davis loved 2 things: speed and Heisman Trophy winners. That's why they drafted Bo Jackson, because he had both. But Cliff Branch, he was on all 3 of the Raiders Super Bowl winning teams, a 3-time first-team All-Pro, a 4-time Pro Bowler, led the NFL receiving yards once, receiving touchdowns twice, had a 99-yard touchdown. 501 catches, 8,685 yards, 67 touchdowns. Now, I know today, that doesn't seem like much, but for back then, in a run-first era, and he played with another Hall of Fame receiver, that's very impressive. Very impressive. He deserved to get in. Unfortunately, the brother passed away before he could get his great moment, standing on the stage with the gold jacket, but yeah, he's in now. Wherever he is, up in heaven, he's smiling. Now, Richard Seymour, he was always kind of shaky for me. I know that may seem controversial to some Patriots fans, but Richard Seymour was always kind of shaky. For me, I mean, granted, I know. 3-time Super Bowl champion, 3 consecutive first-team All-Pros, 7 Pro Bowls, a member of the 2000s All-Decade team. The Patriots could line him up anywhere. Defensive tackle, nose tackle, edge rusher, they could line him up anywhere. And the Patriots teams in the early 2000s were mainly known for their defense. Seymour. You had Ty Law, who's of course in the Hall of Fame. You had Willie McGinnis, who's the playoff all-time leader in sacks with 16. You had Teddy Bruschi. You had Mike Vrabel. You had Lawyer Malloy. Then later on, got replaced with Rodney Harrison. Then they added Asante Samuel in the draft. And of course, they added Vince Wilfork in the draft as well. Richard Seymour was a very good player. Of course, he's a member of the 2000 All-Decade team, so he was one of the best defensive tackles of the decade in an era that had Warren Sapp, might I add. But Hall of Fame, I don't have a problem with Richard Seymour being in the Hall of Fame. But this is the question I want to ask. Do you think Richard Seymour deserved to be in the Hall of Fame ahead of this man right here, Demarcus Ware? Because I don't. Love Richard Seymour. Don't have a problem with him getting into the Hall of Fame at all, even though to me he's kind of shaky. But Demarcus Ware was dominant. Anybody who watched Demarcus Ware back in the 2000s and the early 2010s, there were some years that, to me, and to many other people, he was the best pass rusher in the NFL. I don't give a shit what anybody says. This dude, Demarcus Ware, you could make the argument some years that he was the best pass rusher in the NFL. Ahead of Julius Peppers, ahead of, Terrell Suggs, ahead of Jared Allen. All you remember Jared Allen. Ahead of, a young J.J. Watt. You could make that argument for me. Of course, he was part of that legendary 2015 Denver Broncos team that won Super Bowl 50 and dominated Carolina. Ask Von Miller, who grew up in Texas, about Demarcus Ware. Von Miller's on record saying he idolized Demarcus Ware. And I can see why. Look at this man's accolades. A Super Bowl champion, a 4-time first-team All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler. Twice he led the NFL in sacks. Twice. In 2008, he had 20 and a half sacks. How many players get 20 and a half sacks, honestly? It's not as common as people may think. 138 and a half sacks. He's top 10 all time in sacks. Oh, let me not forget to mention, Demarcus Ware played in the era of Jason Taylor as well. I believe Demarcus Ware is ahead of or behind Jason Taylor all time in sacks. Demarcus Ware is top 10 all time in sacks. Like, are you kidding? And so can you honestly tell me, Richard Seymour, I know Richard Seymour has 3 rings, Demarcus only has 1, but can you honestly tell me that pound for pound, inch for inch, Seymour is better than Demarcus? I don't think so. I mean, again, Seymour, congratulations on making it, but ahead of Demarcus, I don't know about all that. Sam Mills, may he rest in peace. Look, Sam Mills, I didn't watch Sam Mills play. My dad did. He told me Sam Mills was a very good player. Undersized middle linebacker, so for him to make the NFL and play as long as he did is incredible. And I saw his A Football Life that was released several years ago. They talk about what a great man he was, how kind he was, and all that good stuff. But is he a Hall of Famer? I don't know, man. I've seen the highlights, and he was very good. Don't get it twisted, but Hall of Fame, I'm not so sure. First of all, he played on that legendary linebacking core known as the Dome Patrol back in the late 80s, early 90s with the Saints. First of all, Ricky Jackson was the best player on that team. Okay, let's just establish that, number one. And Ricky Jackson, of course, is in the Hall of Fame. A lot of people don't know who he is, but look him up. Of course, Sam Mills coined the phrase "keep pounding," which the Panthers still use to this day. Look, once again, Sam Mills was a very good player. Hall of Fame, I don't know. Maybe it's because I just didn't see him play. For all the people who saw him play like my dad, y'all tell me what you think of Sam Mills in the Hall of Fame in the comment section down below. First team All-Pro once, 5 Pro Bowls, which is very impressive. The USFL, stuff like that. When we talk about, the USFL technically is pro football, but we mainly talk about your NFL accolades as opposed to your USFL or Canadian Football League accolades, stuff like that. Played 11 years, and he got a late start to the NFL, so he lasted into probably his late 30s, early 40s, so that's a very impressive feat. But, Hall of Fame, I don't know, it's kind of shaky for me. Next up is Bryant Young, who was a defensive tackle for the 49ers his entire career, 94 through 07. His rookie year, of course, they went to the Super Bowl and won. They never got back to there in the rest of his tenure there. But Bryant Young, seen the highlights of him. I don't know about Hall of Fame for Bryant Young. Like I said, he got a Super Bowl. Look at his accolades. First team All-Pro once. And keep in mind, he played in the same era as Warren Sapp. a 4-time Pro Bowler, a member of the 90s All-Decade team. But, to me, if you're truly a great, great player, you should, like, who the St. Mary you play with is kind of, I won't say it's irrelevant, but, you should be able to, quote-unquote, steal a couple first-team All-Pros from a young Warren Sapp. John Randall. Forget to mention about John Randall, who played defensive tackle in that era. If you're just as good as those guys who are both in the Hall of Fame, Randall's on the All-Century team, you should have 1, 2, 3, or 4 at least. If you're just as good, if not better than some of those guys. That's just me. So 89.5 sacks. I don't know if y'all can see it at the bottom. I know he's a defensive tackle, but Bryant Young, he kind of, I don't know if he deserved it this year. Next up, Dick Vermeil. Dick Vermeil, look, very good coach. He led the Eagles to the first Super Bowl franchise, which they got destroyed by Cliff Branch and the Raiders. But Dick Vermeil, I don't know if he's a Hall of Fame coach. I just don't know. I mean, for me personally, of course, he helped lead the Rams to their first Super Bowl win in franchise history, the greatest show on turf, and all that. And he revived the Kansas City Chiefs. But as a head coach, there are coaches in the Hall of Fame who didn't win Super Bowls that I wouldn't win over Dick Vermeil. Super Bowl champion, coach of the year once, 120 wins, 109 losses, not bad. 6-5 in the postseason. Okay, these are the head coaches who he's behind all time in wins. Of course, Don Shula, George Halas, Bill Belichick, Tom Landry, Andy Reid, Curly Lambeau, Marty Schottenheimer, Chuck Noll, Dan Reeves, Chuck Knox, Jeff Fisher, Bill Parcells, Tom Coughlin, Mike Shanahan. Mike Shanahan deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. If Dick Vermeil's in the Hall of Fame, Mike Shanahan should be in the Hall of Fame. Paul Brown, Mike Holmgren, Bud Grant, who didn't win the Super Bowl, Joe Gibbs, Mike Tomlin, Steve Owen, Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, Bill Cowher, Marv Levy, who went to 4 straight Super Bowls and didn't win. Mike McCarthy, Tony Dungy, John Harbaugh, John Fox, Marvin Lewis, Hank Stram, Weeb Eubank, Jim Mara, Sid Gilman, and Mike Ditka. I mean, I would probably take Dick Vermeil over some of those coaches, but perhaps actually like maybe 2 or 3 of those coaches, but not over George Halas, not over Bill Parcells. Hell, I wouldn't take him over Mike Shanahan. I wouldn't even take him over Tom Flores. That's just me, but hey, what do you guys think in the comment section down below? Look, nothing personal against these guys, just Leroy Butler deserved it, Buselly deserved it, Cliff Branch deserved it. You could argue Richard Seymour, but the rest of those guys, I don't know. Now, this might be a weak Hall of Fame class, but hey, it is what it is. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. Click the like button, subscribe, help a young brother go on YouTube. See y'all.